sick, I'm still kind of scared in a way. My mom lived with me for 25 years. Her room is still intact. I'm always in her room. We're always in her room talking to her. Like if she's here, my kids think I'm crazy sometimes, but it's okay. I think that that's the way of me healing and talking to Mohammed and to Marcos. And when we have our meetings, that helps me a lot. In my mind, knowing that I'm doing something to keep her memory alive, and that may, gives me peace in my heart. And I hope it, if people would like to join our organization through just talking or just calling us or, getting in touch with us, that would help immensely in your healing process. And I'm sure that there's thousands and thousands of people that are shy about it or just don't want to talk about it because they want to forget about it, but you can never forget a person that you loved. um I'm really at peace right now, like I said, because I have family and friends like you all that have encouraged me to talk about the death of my mother. And that has helped me really, really immensely. Uh, One thing I really want to tell everyone is please enjoy your loved ones, care for them, love them, call them, make sure that they're okay. If they're sick, help them, things like that. That makes you feel better as a person. And there's no regrets after if something does happen to them. Don't wait till they're gone to try to figure out, I should have done this, I could have done this, or that never helps anyone. And I'm, like I said earlier, I encourage anyone to reach out to us through Facebook, through Instagram, a call. I mean, anything. There's many ways that y'all could reach out to us, and we would really be privileged to help have anyone in our organization. And if you have a loved one that's not in the wall, give us a call or and send us an email. And just to close this off, I'm asking for prayers for my little baby granddaughter that was born on December the 9th. But she contracted RSV and she's currently in the hospital. So she's she's been there since a week now. So I'm just asking for prayers for her right now. And I really thank all of you for your support.
I'm sorry to hear that, Elena.
You know, but with God's help, everything's going to be okay.
Thank you, Elena.
Amen.
Thank you so much for your
So,
comments. We're going to hear next from Martha Greenwald. She is the editor of Who We Lost, a portable COVID memorial, and she's the founding director and curator of the Who We Lost project, which she'll tell us more about, but you can find it at whowelost.org. She's published op-eds and essays relating to the pandemic in the LA Progressive, The Hill, the Lexington Herald Leader, Salon, and elsewhere. And she's also a poet. Her first collection of poetry, Other Prohibited Items, was the winner of the Mississippi Review Poetry Series. Her work has appeared in many publications, and she has held a Wallace Stegner Fellowship at Stanford and been awarded fellowships from the North Carolina and Kentucky Arts Councils. She taught English, creative writing, and ESL for 18 years at the University of Louisville. Thank you for being here with us today, Martha. Please.
Thank you. Okay. First, I want to thank Ruth and Mohammed for asking me to speak today on behalf of the Who We Lost Project. I admire their steadfast work, and I feel the first thing that it's vital to say is that what may seem like an obvious point, but is sadly lost on so many, is that we should appreciate what they have done and what they created, and also treasure that they have kept the COVID-19 wall of memories going when it seems increasingly like the world of empathetic listeners regarding pandemic losses is diminishing. And I also want to thank them for their generosity in including my work in this fourth anniversary program. I'm glad that their team believes in the power of kinship, which I think is vital. I've been asked to discuss the Who We Lost project as it relates to the importance of memorialization and memory. COVID-19 Wild Memories launched just a month or so before Who We Lost Kentucky, and we clearly had similar ideas with different emphases. In an article from May 2024 in the LA Times about how the trauma of the pandemic was affecting the presidential election, Ruth pointed out that the wall of memories, quote, gives us perspective. We've seen an arc of change in COVID response and grief, unquote. I agreed with her statement in May, and I agree even more strongly now. A bit of history about how I began to give context. Looking back at the first iteration of the site that I created for Kentuckians, it's a time machine of sorts. There was a lot of preparation and many drafts, but while designing it, I came across a news item that changed the trajectory of the project. The article described the existence of secret COVID grieving groups that met in undisclosed locations because the participants feared verbal and physical attacks from their family and friends. And I thought it was one of the saddest things I'd ever seen. And most had been bullied on social media when they mentioned COVID as a cause of death. Their attempts to mourn were met with disinformation and cruel questions about comorbidities. Some were disowned, even within close-knit families. So as I read what they had endured, I realized that the Who We Lost website needed to serve two main purposes. The first was to ensure a safe space for mourners to feel secure about documenting their memories. So no comments are ever allowed on the site entries. Second, the site houses a writing toolbox that includes prompts and tips to alleviate anxiety and gently help anyone who feels stuck or hesitant about writing. So the site launched successfully in Kentucky, and 6 months later, it was featured on national NPR. And so I started receiving multiple requests to also create a national COVID memorial website with the same basic idea of privacy and sort of avoidance of social media. Um, Most people who asked for the expansion when they wrote to me said they wanted to participate because it was not part of anything that was social media related. So this feature has become increasingly appreciated now that we're looking 5 years down the line, because for the COVID bereaved, posting about their loss was then, but unfortunately still is for some, a minefield. So if someone's grandfather dies due to cancer and they choose to post about it on Facebook, they can expect the obligatory sorry for your loss. But if that same person posts now, 4 years later, to honor their mother, maybe who died after a month on a ventilator in a COVID unit, they may be met with questions about comorbidities or vaccination status or complaints that are rife with disinformation about the virus's existence. Um, the motto of the Who We Lost project, which came to me after we launched, is shelter their story. And I believe that the stories and memories attached to our loved ones must be kept whole and safe in an increasingly precarious world. But this notion, I think, has become even more difficult because from what I've been thinking a lot about lately is that I think one of COVID's longest ironic mutations is that it has become the great enabler of grief, setting off a proliferation of books and Instagram accounts and like so many podcasts that address various states and reverberations of grief, but not the grief related to why we are here today, the pandemic, right? So if you think about like the popularity of the Anderson Cooper grief podcast, for instance, um, there's just so much of that, and I think it's a classic, is it I think it is a classic elephant in the living room scenario where everyone's walking around with the residual trauma of collective loss as we forge ahead. But really, after all, we're talking about a blip in time, right? It's only 5 years since this started. And I don't know if we've become that callous as a society that we're not really going to, you know, endeavor to remember the loss of 1.2 million people in the US. So finally, I just want to point out that through my work as a member of the Rituals in the Making project at George Washington University, which is a really amazing pandemic remembrance project in the anthropology department, I've become acquainted with the work of a historian named Dr. Nancy Bristow, who's a scholar of many things, but her 2012 book is called American Pandemic: The Lost Worlds of the 1918 Influenza Epidemic. And I would recommend this to all of us who are interested in the subject. Her book's conclusion is called Reckoning the Costs of Amnesia, and its discussion of the consequences of social forgetting of the 1918 pandemic are eerily predictive of the current situation regarding COVID-19. You have to keep remembering this book came out in 2012, and she concludes her discussion of the 1918 Spanish flu with a hope for the future. And what she hopes for is that if we should face another similar crisis, which we did, that society would deal with it more humanely, with more memory and empathy and appreciation for historical precedent. Unfortunately, as a society, we have not heeded her call. But those of us who are here today on the screen, and those of you who are listening from afar, do understand that, or we wouldn't all be listening today. And we understand her fears and her hopes. And I think it's us, who have to encourage others to engage in the difficult and necessary work of remembering. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Ruth is muted.
You're muted.
Thank you for being here with us. Martha, is basically what I was saying. I also wanted to ask, what is the status of the Who We Lost website? Are you still actively compiling stories or remembrances, or did that
It's current. In fact, I published 3 stories last night, and someone just messaged me that there's another one. We go through lulls where maybe nothing comes in, but like now I'm seeing with the holidays in the past couple of weeks, there was more stories with the new year coming and people worried about all various things that are coming. I'm seeing more interest. I don't want it to go away. Like you don't want yours to go away, because I feel like at this point, there's thousands of stories on there, and it's a really important document of time and place, and also because we don't allow comments, it's attractive to people who really don't feel like they can say anything anymore, what they want on social media.
Yeah.
We also allow for anonymity. So there is the occasional story that's either only initials. I know who they are in the back end of the site, but what you only see is initials or maybe just a first name, or because there's a lot of family division and they can't say what they want to with their actual name, which I think is very sad, but I try to accommodate and help with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So it's whowelost.org.
Yeah.
And someone can submit their story to that site.
At any moment. And they can write as many times as they want also.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. And next, we're going to hear from another one of the people that we are blessed to have as a board member, and that's Sam Alix. He's a native Houstonian. He spent 22 years serving in the U.S. military and deployed to Iraq in 2007 with the Air Force, separating in 2012. Sam obtained his master's degree in sociology from the University of Houston, Clear Lake, and holds numerous certifications to provide behavioral health support. Sam and his wife, Kayla, who's also a powerhouse in the community, by the way, launched the nonprofit CHAMP in 2016, providing peer support and behavioral health support for veterans and their families, as well as at-risk communities. He is a proud father and grandfather. And Sam, please share your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Ruth. I echo both Martha and Elena's testament to you and Mohammed's faithfulness and continued honoring of those we've lost. So bravo to you too. And it's an honor to be here today. And when Ruth reached out to me, it didn't take very long to volunteer to come on today. So thank you for this amazing opportunity. I have 2 areas to cover that I've been tasked to cover by Ruth. The first one is community's role in remembering the loss of those we've lost to COVID-19. And then secondly, my role as a board, or we as board members, our role in continuing to honor those we've lost, COVID-19. There's a famous quote that says, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it," unquote, by Spanish philosopher George Santayana from his piece, The Life of Reason, in 1956. I believe that there are three types of citizens that occupy our space and time: those that watch it happen, those that make it happen, and those that say what happened or ask what happened. We must be doers and not merely spectators or critics. Therefore, we as activists or advocates must be lights. So 3 points to inspire and encourage others to join us in this task. First point, let's continue to be lights in our community through volunteerism, education, sharing our wins, protesting injustices, and supporting noble causes like we are doing today. Like the late John Lewis said, get into good trouble. Second point, let's put resources behind what we believe. It was once said and often said that you can tell what someone prioritizes by looking at their checkbook. Why are we spending our time? That's the first. Attending meetings, being behind organizations like COVID-19 Wall of Memories, hosting events, or using our platform to share about amazing organizations like COVID-19 Wall of Memories. So time is one. The second one is using our talents. Those of us that are computer savvy, are we using those tasks or those skill sets to share the word and share the wins and promote positive organizations like we've mentioned here today? And lastly, our treasure. Join me in supporting the work of COVID-19 Wall of Memories and others organizations through fundraising, through pledging, or leaving a legacy gift. My third point, let's inspire or encourage or challenge us all to inspire the next generation. Mentoring is vital. I recall talking to some veterans one time. I'm going off script here, but I remember talking to some veterans one time at the VA, and they were complaining about the status of our young people. You know, their pants are down and things like that. And so I asked the guys, I really didn't know them. I knew they were veterans being at the VA hospital. But I asked them, I said, so do you guys coach? Oh, no, we don't coach. I said, well, you guys must be active in your local church or whatever. Oh, no, we don't do any of that. And so I concluded in my own mind, but man, maybe it's because those young people don't have a belt to wear. So we have to mentor. We have to, what is often said, have unconditional positive regard. In other words, thinking the positive of others instead of the worst. Secondly, in terms of inspiring the next generation, those of us that can no longer do, we can still coach, we can still teach, we can still get on the phone and encourage and motivate. We can write letters, we can call our congressman. I'll conclude this first portion by saying there's a famous quote by Dr. King when he was speaking to young people in a Philadelphia middle school during the civil rights movement. He said, if you can fly, fly. But if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. And if you can't walk, then crawl. Whatever you do, keep moving forward. So it's important that we inspire those that are on the periphery of COVID-19 Wall of Memories and the work that each of these organizations are doing. Our critics, they're doing their job. But we're fighting for the hearts and minds and souls of those that are impacted through loss. And some of those folks can only respond through silence or anger. But when we love, we can look past their behaviors and get to the heart of the matter. Now, my second point, we as a board, what can we do? What should we do? What can we do? What must we do? I am committed personally, and I challenge each of us on the line that are board members or activists in the community. I'm committed, and I challenge us again. And I hope to inspire each of us to reach, teach, impact someone else to support the great work that Mohammed and Ruth have started doing with COVID-19 Wall of Memories. By remaining faithful and committed, we can turn the tide of battle. I was so moved by Elena when she shared about her mom and how she's keeping her memory alive. That's so important. That's so important. So again, Ruth and Mohammed, thank you for having a faithfulness, courage, stick-to-itness to do what you're doing, and for also reaching out to myself and Kayla to be involved as well. We appreciate you, we love you, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sam. Wise words as always, and we really appreciate your support and your work in the community as well. And the final guest we'll be hearing from before we hear from the brainchild behind COVID-19 Wall of Memories is our friend and colleague, renowned artist and creative visionary, Marcos Lutyens. He creates transformative works focusing on consciousness as a unifying force and amid environmental, social, and technological change. His COVID memorialization projects, including the Rose River Memorial and the Living Memories World COVID Memorial, in collaboration with the World Health Organization, preserve collective memory and inspire healing. His work bridges global and personal experiences to shift awareness and inspire new perspectives. Marcos?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ruth and Mohammed. And I'm very honored to be here to share my story, which in some ways kind of coincides with COVID-19 Wall of Memories and also Martha's work. And there's also a lot of emotional resonance, such as with what Lena was talking about her family, and also Sam. So I'm just going to share a slideshow, and let's see if I can pull it up. Here we go. And during COVID-19, I worked on about 3 projects, and I guess COVID-19 isn't really over, even though I think it officially ended in March 2023, I think, officially, but yeah, it's still lingering, unfortunately. The first thing I did was when the lockdown hit in March, I discovered this new medium called Zoom. And I gathered friends from around the world and did hypnosis sessions, 12 hypnosis sessions. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, so I thought I could help, people who had some kind of like fear and trauma about the impending crisis, the crisis that was just really beginning. So I started that, and I did these 12 sessions between March and June. And by 2020, June 2020, the pandemic had actually got worse and worse. So I turned my thoughts and efforts to helping memorialize those lost to COVID. So I started this project called the Rose River Memorial, which basically the idea was to make one rose for each person that had died from COVID. And these were communities throughout the US, lots of different communities. And we did a lot of work on Zoom and, bringing people together on Zoom and making these roses. And then they were sent to me, either handed to me or sent to me. And I'm going to kind of whiz through these slides. There's a lot of emotional aspects to them, which I can't really get into, but you can see, for instance, this was the first installation at Self Help Graphics in East LA. And, every week I had to change the number of roses. And in East LA, there was a lot of people dying from COVID, and a lot more than on the West Side. This was an installation I did shortly after on the West Side, but it was like scary to see how on the East Side in LA, which is mostly Latino, there's a lot more people dying per population. Then towards the end of the year, the December 31st, this was actually the day of most deaths in the US from COVID. And we did this ceremony where the souls were ushered across the ocean according to Tongva tradition, and with Tines Calderon was helping. She's a Tongva elder. Then I'm going to skip through these quite quickly. So this was at the Oceanside, Orange County Museum of Art, 4,000 roses made by volunteers. This was in Rio Grande Valley in Texas, and kind of riffing with what Martha was talking about. We tried to display the roses in the city hall and other places, but we were not allowed to. So in the end, we rented a truck and we showed them on the truck. There was often a lot of pushback towards memorialization. This was at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles on the day that Joe Biden was inaugurated, 2021, after months and months of kind of denialism had been going on. Adam Schiff, who is now Senator of California, I guess, he kindly made a message to support the Rose River Memorial. And we showed it at the cathedral in Orange County with the bishop inside the cathedral. And then we did lots of different places. The project started spreading to Topeka in Kansas, where this Girl Scout, Anna Newcomb, was responsible for 5,000 roses. And gradually we started accumulating more and more roses. This was actually in Hawaii, and we used recycled fish nets from the ocean that had been pulled from preserved habitats. And then this was in Kansas City in Missouri, and again, lots of volunteers. Going back to Martha's problem here, we wanted to show roses. This was with Eileen Brooks of Marked by COVID. We wanted to show the roses in Bakersfield at the City Hall. But in the end, nobody would allow us to. And so we ended up showing the roses on the sailing boat that belonged to Eileen's dad, who passed away from COVID, and we parked it in front of the City Hall. So that was, kind of resistance effort. This was in Burbank. This is Mayor Frutos, whose mother died from COVID. And they were very welcoming and supportive. And then another big unveiling was at the downtown convention center in Los Angeles, which had been a field hospital. And we had gathered 24,000 roses made by the local community. And it was inaugurated by Eric Garcetti, who was the mayor at the time. And then we showed it, I just basically brought it to different places. We also wanted to get it into the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. And the way that we were trying to do that was by turning the installation from a kind of public art installation into something that could be worn, and in that way kind of get through, the powers that be that would exclude something like that. And here's some more photos of other installations. In Missouri, again, incredible support from the Girl Scouts and from the Kiwanis as well. Around the country, more installations. This was on Martin Luther King on Juneteenth, 2022. This was a commemoration for the 34 countries of the Americas. And then I kind of started to spread them to different parts of the world, Venice and Saudi Arabia. And we also did a really beautiful installation at Tranquility Park in Houston, and there you can see Ruth and Mohammed and some of the family members. And I think there's Sam at the bottom right as well, I think. Oh, there we go. And it was really heartfelt project, and it was very supported by the council members. And I remember Council Member Plummer and I'm not going to say it right, but the Garcia, who was working for the county, I think. He was there. So there was a lot of support, and that was great. This was up in Salinas. Again, I can't express all the emotional aspect of this project, but it helped people grieve all over the place. This was in Peru. All these kids lost their parents to COVID, and they're orphans now. So we were helping support them, and the project managed to be shown on the front page of the New York Times, which was kind of gratifying in a way to receive that honor. But at the same time, one couldn't help feeling that the project was also kind of diminished wherever possible in certain ways, which I'm not going to get into right now. I had thought of bringing the roses to the rose garden, but I think the rose garden is no longer a rose garden after a certain person got rid of the roses. Then I know we don't have much time, but the project kind of segued into this World Health Organization project with the Global Scrub Choir. The Global Scrub Choir is a kind of singing choir of doctors and nurses. And so we collaborated and brought this version of the roses to the world stage. And so we made a map of the globe, and then had these kind of virtual roses that would rise up from the map of the world, and brought it to different places. I was in Central Park, and the mayor of New York was there. And this was in the Lincoln Center, and you can see the Global Scrub Choir on the bottom. And this was in Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. This was actually, again, there was resistance to us bringing the project to the United Nations headquarters, even though we had pretty good contacts there. But in the end, we made a robe that worked as an installation, as a portable installation. And ironically, this picture was sent to us by the US Department of State after, being kind of like pushed away from being there. So that was interesting. And then worked in New Delhi, where there's a huge number of people that died from COVID. And you can see on the left that the roses were represented each person that had died from COVID. And so you could tap on the roses in your cell phone, and these individuals would appear. And the reason for using the cell phone is that many last goodbyes were said through cell phone or through tablet. And this was in Rio de Janeiro, working in different places. And top left was in this hospital, and basically in the kind of slums of Rio de Janeiro, very hardcore, lots of trauma, but hopefully healing in its own way. And that was also with the Global Scrub Choir. And then these were in different places in Europe, in London, Venice, Hanover, in Germany. And then this is the last slide. This was, we brought it to Geneva this summer, early summer, to the Place des Nations. And you can see me there on the left, talking to Dr. Tedros, who's the head of the World Health Organization. So that's part of the journey. And I know it was a bit of a rush to get through that in a little bit of time, but I would like to express my incredible gratitude to Ruth and Mohammed and COVID-19 Wall of Memories for the support with these projects, and for having this incredible dialogue of how to preserve the memories of those who've been lost to COVID, and especially after the Spanish flu, and the fact that so many people, if people had paid attention, then not so many people would have perished with COVID-19. And so it's our job to be the people that make sure that COVID-19 doesn't happen again. So that's pretty much it. Just one last thing is the WHO project was in support of the Pandemic Accord, which has been this document that's been 197 countries have been trying to sign it to make sure that there's quicker response the next time there's a pandemic, which could happen any day. So thank you again, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcos, so much. And I have to say, when we did the Rose River Memorial here in Houston, we had an army of volunteers. And Mohammed, how many roses did our volunteers make?
Well, the count in Houston at that time was 120,000. So the additional roses that we ended up making was almost like 80,000 roses that our army of volunteers with, I think we had like maybe 4 or 5 sessions. Uh, they manually made these roses. So we actually in that memorial we had 120,000 roses. Yeah,
Yeah,
each rose representing one victim in Houston. So
right.
yes, we had an army of volunteers, and we had some really what I call gold standard volunteers who were just making them at home and bringing them to us to put them in strings. It was really amazing, amazing. I mean, I'd actually have hundreds of pictures and videos of the preparation that it took us
Yeah.
almost 6 months to get things ready for this 48-hour memorial in Tranquility Park.
Yeah,
That was a
it
lot of
was
work.
was a huge project. And so we'd like to close out with hearing from the gentleman who was the originator of the idea for COVID-19 Wall of Memories. Probably his greatest accomplishment, I'm sure he would say, is being my husband. Right? At any rate, what I'm going to do is let you, Mohammed, introduce yourself a little bit to our audience for those of us who don't know who you are and make some closing comments. So, Mohammed.
All right, so my name is Mohammed Nasrullah. Please excuse my nasal voice, this congestion and cold. Anyway, my name is Mohammed Nasrullah. I am a retired project manager. I worked on a NASA project all my life for about almost 40 years, and I'm retired now, and I'm like a professional volunteer. I volunteer in a lot of nonprofits, but in 2020, when we started seeing the number of people who were getting infected with COVID-19 and people getting hospitalized, it was in the news, it was always numbers. And but through local news and talking to people, we realized that there are actually people behind all these numbers. I mean, we'll find out that a teacher or a nurse or a doctor in our community was impacted, and you hardly heard anything about them. So by the time, I think it was April or May 2020, we said that we need to do something to remember these people. I mean, at that time, I believe it was around 100,000 people who have died in the US from COVID. And so we kind of, Ruth and I, jotted down what we wanted to to do to remember and honor these folks. And we took all those ideas, sat down with a website developer, and we worked with a website developer over the next 5 or 6 months. And January of 2021, this project was launched. And we have an army of volunteers who have been helping us maintain this memorial, this virtual memorial. And there's two ways of how people get honored on this memorial. One is folks like Elena, and there's several hundred others who have shared their loved one stories on this virtual memorial. The other is that we or volunteers look for people who have died, their obituaries online, and we share those stories and honor them on the wall. So over the last 4 years or so, we have honored a little over 23,000 Americans on the wall. And my job um, is to review everything that gets uploaded, and I review everything. I read the stories, and then when I approve is when it gets that person gets honored on the wall. So I get to read all the stories, and there are, I mean, there's, when the theme which says memories matter, it really makes such a big difference in remembering what has happened to families. What, I mean, there's literally hundreds of couples who have died, who are honored on the virtual memorial, who have died within minutes or hours of each other. I mean, there are young couples who have died, and instantly their children have been orphaned. It's really so many sad stories, but it's I feel like it's our job to remember all that and make sure that we have that captured, so the family members or loved ones or friends who want to visit the memorial, they can do that anytime, 24/7, leave messages. We actually have several people who actually visit the memorial on the day when their loved one died, like they are visiting a cemetery. I mean, they come back every year on the same day, and leave a message or just spend some time, and it's really so um, I want to, first of all, I want to thank Elena and Martha and Marcos and Sam for joining us in this major milestone, fourth anniversary, and encouraging us to continue our work. Thank you so much. It makes a big difference in what we do, and it keeps us on our goal of honoring and remembering and memorializing people who have died of COVID in our country. Um, and in addition, we I want to thank these hardworking volunteers who have been helping this project from day one. I mean, even before we went live, we had volunteers like Rosie and Mary Ellen and so many others who were working hard. When we launched, we had 500 people already honored on the wall, and now it's 23,000 some, and they have, a lot of them have never left us. They just keep on helping us. So I want to thank all the volunteers. And last year, several local families who have lost loved ones and who have honored their loved ones on our virtual memorial, they came to us with the idea that in addition to the virtual memorial, they would like to have a physical memorial in Houston. And so the idea of the physical memorial was born last year. And working with Marcos, he developed some concepts, and we presented the concepts to folks like Elena and Lisa Witten and several others. And we were able to select a concept, and I can share you a picture of what this concept looks like. But and our local commissioner, Adrian Garcia, funded the preliminary engineering for that concept. So that has been done, and now we are in the phase of raising fundraising for that project to materialize hopefully in 2025. So Ruth, can I share that? Okay, can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a memorial that Marcos came up with. It's the shape of a teardrop. It's approximately 45 feet tall, and it is on top of a 6-foot plinth, and it will have, like in the picture on the left bottom, it will have seating, like outdoor style seating for people to sit there, meditate, just spend some time there. And right now, we are working with the city and the county to find a location, like a county park or a city park that's kind of in the near downtown, to locate this memorial. And we expect that in the next few months we will have enough funds to start building this project. Right.
Thank,
So, okay. And I want to close this thing with a short, a few verses from this poem that I found over the internet. It did not have the name of the poet, but I really like these four verses. It says, "If you listen close enough, the voices of the ones you love will stay inside your mind for you to recall anytime." Thanks so much.
thank you very much, Mohammed. So that's our next big project is this 45-foot tall um, memorial to people in the greater Houston area who've passed away from COVID. It's a big project, and as he mentioned, Marcos is the one who designed it, and I believe Elena, the shape of a teardrop was the idea you suggested, right? So it kind of organically came uh, in that way, and we're, as Mohammed said, we're in the middle of um, getting all our ducks into a row and make this thing a reality. So thank you again to all of you for being here and sharing with us our remembrance of the day, January 4th, 2021, when this project was launched. Thank you all so much for your support. Again, the website is COVID-19 wallofmemories.org. We welcome you to visit the site and to honor your loved one that you lost to COVID if you're so inclined. And again, thank you so much. And thanks to all of our guests for being here and sharing the ways in which you have been part of the effort to remember and ensure that we don't forget the people in this country whom we've lost to COVID. So thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.